Mass incarceration is a major epidemic that is plaguing our nation and it needs to be reformed. This is important because nearly 12 million admissions into jail are incurred annually, and though criminal punishment is inevitable, how our nation reacts is equally as important. We need to do something about this because our system is broken. If we don't do anything, then 3 out of the 5 people going to prison could be easily wrongfully convicted and have to serve time because of our meeting quotas with mass incarceration. Furthermore, because of this, finding a solution caused by mandatory sentencing and police practices and harsher laws is hard. However, I hope my perspective on the issue will shed some light. In this speech, I will discuss topical issues that are for reforming mass incarceration initiatives, as well as against it based off of mandatory sentencing, the zero tolerance and clearance programs, the war on drugs, and other political rhetorics. Then I will conclude with policies that could be implemented to combat the incarceration rate. Reasons that people argue for the not to reform the economy or reform mass incarceration is because how it treats the economy. Even though we do spend $80 million taxpayer dollars on it, just from public prisons alone, they make about $7.6 million in revenue. And it's very lucrative because even companies like Wells Fargo has invested over $100 million in public correction facilities. And obviously, private prisons probably are just as lucrative. Therefore, it's a vital part of our economic value, and it would easily leave a mark if it wasn't there anymore. However, another argument is that it gets rid of the uneducated, the unemployed, while adding jobs. Though this is technically true, it is a bit biased as because to a degree, people who do go to jail are more likely to be pragmatic and bad for society, technically. But I do feel like that is not a fair point because though it does technically make society better, getting rid of people who are violent against society and break societal rules and characters, it doesn't fix them as a correctional facility. If your main job is to rehabilitate these people, why are they coming out with still not achieving jobs, usually having a high retention rate and going back to prison, especially in minorities? I feel like if you're going to say that the reason for prisons is to fix something, why is it not fixed when they come out? Okay. Also, another reason for mass incarceration is that it serves as a warning. The main objective of prisons is to serve as a deterrent for people to commit other crimes and serve as a message. Because if people see people with punishment, they're less likely to do the crime themselves. Now, at this point in my speech, I will be talking about the perspectives on why it should be reformed. One of the arguments is that mass incarceration plagues the morality of the system itself. Because of its possibility of incarceration, it reinforces maintaining and increasing the number of inmates in prison, which is not good if the system is supposed to provide all the benefits that it's so-called said it was doing before, making society better. That doesn't make sense if you're forcing people to stay in prison, which also makes it harder for them to eventually get out, as the longer that you're in prison, the less likely you are to get out statistically. And it could keep people from, especially with mass incarceration, ever pursuing a better life or better opportunity. Another topical issue that arises that why we should reform it is because incarceration policies heavily target minorities, mostly African Americans, who usually come from low-income, high-crime areas. Despite accounting for only 14% of the U.S. population, they account for 40% of people in prison. Black men who were born in 2001 are 32% likely to end up in prison, while their male white cohorts are only 6% as likely. That isn't fair considering we don't even make up the majority. Another way is that it targets African Americans and minorities is because even how different things are seen based off of judgment. It is known that with the opioid crisis, it is seen as a crisis, something that people should take pity on, and that these people need help and mental care and mental facilities. It is not looked at something illegal and illicit in that way where these people are doing a major crime. They're looked as people who need help. Therefore, they statistically are less likely to receive hard sentences and usually do not end up in prison or mostly in mental health facilities to rehabilitate them. And crazy thing is, the majority of them are white. However, when it comes to things like weed or the huge rise and cracking down on people with crack, those were not seen. Crack alone was not seen like opioids, people who have like a strong addiction. Weed is different, but weed is also not as not as bad compared to crack and opioids based off of side effects that are already out. So why are those so easily taxed with heavy sentencing? Just having weed can put you in prison and jail for so many days. But with opioids, you may not even think about seeing prison time at all. That makes no sense. But why is that so demographically challenged as well, or oriented as well? Now that I have presented the areas of concern, I would like to conclude with the resolution. As I stated before, my intent was never to challenge the entire correctional facility status quo, but to provide a further analysis of an aspect of the process, which is mass incarceration. As imprisonment is inevitable in society, I believe suggestions on how to improve and provide elements of justice in the system are broken. My resolution to fixing some of the holes in mass incarceration is to eliminate lower level crimes of imprisonment and also not send people to jail because they can't pay the books. If you're going into like areas where people are easily more poor and you're charging them with things whether they did it or not, they can't afford bail, therefore they have to sit in prison regardless if they're innocent or not. And I don't believe that's fair. I feel like we shouldn't be trying to meet quotas by putting people in prison for so many days. We really should make sure people stay out of prison. People know how bad prison is, therefore you don't need to put everyone in it because you suspect them of committing a crime. Also reducing maximum minimum sentencing. The whole point is to get people out of prison. If people have less sentencing in prison, the less likely they are to acclimate themselves into prison. Not long ago, I saw an interview about people, how they say how a mentality of people will change based off their sentencing, where the longer that you are technically sentenced, they say the more duller and depressed and more aggressive those particular people are. And even they have special awards just for people who have life because they're more likely to not care as they have nothing to lose since they won't be leaving prison. So with these small changes, we can create a more fair standing legal system, and therefore I hope now the audience can respect my perspective. Thank you.